I'm sort of gobsmacked by the pediatrician I had at 15 who assured me, Dr. Keel, assured me that my ADHD would go away after puberty.
You'll grow out of it.
Assured me, you will just grow out of it. This is the first time in my memory that I stood up to a licensed person of authority and said, I just cannot accept that as true.
By definition, most ADHD people are loving, sensitive, and kind at the very heart of all of us. Always felt like I had to try so much harder. It wasn't until after med school and residency that it kind of just was like this dream I've been chasing was for somebody else.
You made it through med school and residency without ADHD treatment?
We got to do a tail slate here, which is the intro we never gave you. You'll notice, gentlemen, that we entered right into the conversation, which are how the best conversations go, and we never introduced you after an hour and 20 minutes of talking. So, for our listeners at home, this is going to sound kind of weird because we did this introduction at the end, but you're going to enjoy this episode because that means it was a good conversation.
Good.
Most people think ADHD treatment is simple: get a diagnosis, get a prescription, done. But what if everything you thought you knew about ADHD medication, addiction risk, and even your love life was based on outdated information? Today, we're sitting down with Dr. Scott Keel, MD, MPH, a board-certified physician, medical director of 𝗦𝑒𝑛 𝘾𝑒𝑒𝑙 Health, and someone who knows ADHD not just from the clinic, but from lived experience. That's right. We've got an ADHDer on the show today. He's treating patients from childhood all the way to age 94, and he's here to challenge some assumptions, share what modern ADHD medicine actually looks like, and give you tools you could use starting today. Dr. Scott Keel.
This was so much fun.
Welcome to the Attention Different podcast. It is about to be fun.
Yeah. This doctor from Greece was like, well, we only have access to Ritalin for the whole country, right? So we are in a good spot compared to other places. And then what countries allow what. But I think kind of hitting that point of medications being different, I'm a big advocate of trying different medications. Just a couple of weeks ago, I tried the patch, right? Just to see if I could get a couple extra hours in that. I didn't really notice too much difference from what I'm currently taking. But that was my probably biggest aha moment. I was struggling as a pediatrician doing these 15-minute type visits and wanting to talk too much. And I want to, make the connection and do all those other types of things that we have skill sets in, but not time management. And so my old mentor is like, you need to go see my mentor. And so I went upstairs and started talking to George, and he switched my medication up to one of the newer medications, and it's ionized into 200,000 microparticles that get smoothly. So I was on Adderall XR and twice a day and all these Ritalin and things like that prior to, and this was the first time I never felt it. I was like,
wow,
it's working. And so I'm kind of like, I just want to notice the difference of my symptom reduction and not feel the medication. Because if you feel it, it's kind of like it's changing. I feel different. No, I just want to be me with better symptom control.
What medication was it, if you don't mind me asking?
Adzenys turned out to be the one that's been working probably the best for me. And I've been on the same dose for 15 years now. It's actually just gone generic. Yeah, so it's been on the market that long. It's bioequivalent to Adderall, but it's oral and dissolvable, so the abuse potential's less. You don't have that instant release spike where Adderall's got the light switch, right? It's working. So now people associate a feeling to it's working. Well, what happens once that feeling goes away? I need a higher dose. No, you don't. Your symptoms are being well managed. We just now associate a feeling to it working. And that's what we're trying to get away from. That's why Adderall is one of the ones that's most abused and things like that. But also 50 plus years old, right?
There's so much hesitation, I think, around parents or people being told these fear-mongering stories about stimulants and it's a dangerous drug or similar to meth or these different things. And I think it's unfortunate because, like you said, it's actually one of those things that can be almost the first line of like, hey, let's try this because it can most likely help with about 60% of your core ADHD symptoms to help you better manage those. And like you said, you'll know right away. It's not like a SSRI or antidepressant where it's like you have to wait 3 to 4 weeks to really, let it absorb in your bloodstream and then see how you're doing and deal with different side effects. And you can kind of like experience it right away and know, hey, how is this working for me? Is it not? But it does also, like, I think we're still in a point with medicine right now that it still feels a little bit like the dark ages around, like, let's try this, see how you do, and come back in a week or two and let us know. I think that at some point we're going to get that genetic testing better or something like that we can better attune the initial prescriptions to the profile of the patient and their ability to metabolize the medicine. And I just think right now, we're not quite there yet. I mean, there's a few companies like Genomind out there, I don't have any relation with them, but I know I took one of those genetic tests myself when I was struggling to just find which medicine, because I was prescribed Ritalin at the beginning when I was about 8 years old. Like a lot of folks are, like by my pediatrician. And it was terrible. I had huge crashes at the end of the day. And I just felt bad on it. And so I was of course trying not to take it, hiding my medication, throwing it out, telling my parents I don't want it, that type of stuff. And then I later on got on Adderall, which, the amphetamine-based one worked better for me.
Worked better for you.
But it still wasn't perfect. Like for me, I still had a lot of side effects that I'd notice. Increased anxiety, sweating, like some other things like that. So I went to the genetic test and I was like, okay, I hope that this is going to give me the answer. Like, is this going to...
I remember this process for you.
Yeah, they break it into this like stoplight system.
Yeah, the green, red, and yellow.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, please, God, I hope that there's going to be some pill in the green, right? And to my surprise, no, there wasn't. I had 0 medications in the green column, which is like, you won't have side effects. Well, in the yellow-orange column, right, that we take with caution, Adderall was in there, right? Then on the red column, of course, methylphenidate, Ritalin.
For sure.
And I was like, that makes so much sense. And it could have saved me 5-10 years growing up in this hellscape of people thinking I'm exaggerating, parents, other people just telling me get over it.
Especially at that age group, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. When you're 10, 12, 14, you're in middle school. Your life is ordained for you. Like you don't have choice. You go to school at 7 or 8 in the morning. You come home if you have extracurriculars or sports, sometimes at 7 p.m. And you think that 10-year-old has agency when they don't have an appetite. Like they genuinely don't have an appetite, or they're sweating, or their hands are shaking like they've had 4 cups of coffee and they work in finance. Like it is again an absurd and surrealist authority, or not authority, the agency that we give and take from individuals constantly, right? Like you have to both be the champion and advocate for yourself, but then also when you advocate for yourself, people tell you you're lying and gaslight you effectively for a decade.
And that's so important why I think like you're doing what you're doing, which I don't think I'd venture to say like you're in the minority of clinicians that are practicing in this way, right?
I'm definitely in the minority, but hopefully not for long. And hence why I want to kind of get this message out there to help people kind of learn to advocate and ask the right questions and help educate both, like Stephen was saying, the top and the bottom side to this thing. Even the nurses, right, can be a hiccup within the whole process.
Hey, Stephen here. Sorry to interrupt. We just wanted to take a brief moment to tell you about this week's sponsor. At Attention Different, our mission is simple. Offer ADHD adults proven practical strategies for living a more balanced, fulfilled ADHD life. And that is why we are thrilled to offer our latest course, Thriving with Adult ADHD. While other courses might focus on the pain and struggle of being an adult with ADHD, and we do not want to minimize that, this course is designed around accessible, relevant, and applicable techniques that address the most common challenges facing ADHD adults. Inside Thriving with Adult ADHD, you will learn how to improve focus by using tools to cut through distractions and get things done. Get organized by building routines and habits to bring structure to your days. You'll learn to find balance by optimizing medication, self-care, and professional support. Thriving with Adult ADHD features 2 hours of on-demand video, 10 downloadable resources, lifetime access to the material, and a satisfaction guarantee. Go to attentiondifferent.com/thriving to sign up now. That's attentiondifferent.com/thriving to sign up now. Hey, thanks for the quick break. Now back to the interview.
I have a question though, real quick. So just tell us, like, how did you change your practice? So you were doing this kind of quicker sessions without doing any sort of mental health counseling component or psychoeducation component to some of this stuff. How did you then like change a little bit of the way that you practice or include in some of these extra services?
The original healthcare model was kind of dream shattering, right? From growing up, always wanting to be this caregiver to some extent. And then I'm burnt out, right? Trying to keep up with a system that just was not designed for me. And I loved working in the NICU. I loved working in the PICU and doing these types of things. I couldn't do the hours, but I was fit. I was young, and if I didn't have like a half day admin Wednesday, right? My weekends, I was so exhausted. The weekends started to just be all about sleep. And then Monday through Friday was work. And then you get home and you're so tired and all of these types of things. So I ended up having a kind of a career shift. And I was like, if I'm going to survive and chase my dream, I need to figure me out. And so I ended up taking a detour, as we tend to, and I started getting into preventative medicine and also wanted to figure out my family. So addiction medicine was in there. I started getting into integrative medicine to try to help some of the burnout and depression that I was feeling. And then through, just happenstance of meeting some people who started to say, you have ADHD and these are the things. You're not going to outwork it. You just got to embrace it.
You didn't realize until later in life that you had ADHD?
Oh, no. So family classic, family classic. They just got it wrong with my older brother. And so antipsychotics and inpatient and everything, but he was just misunderstood, and the medications that they would throw him on back in the 80s, over-medicated, all these types of things. So I was the youngest, right? And I was kind and I was sensitive and I worked hard, had a lot of, kind of some traumatic step parenting styles, right? That there was a lot of fear, right? If I didn't make good grades, whatever. I sat out in the hallway a lot, but the teachers liked me because I was, a sweet, kind kid. And that's, I think, by definition, most ADHD people are loving, sensitive, and kind at the very heart of all of us. We feel stronger. We sense things more, things like that. So my grades were always kind of good, things like this, but there's a lot of classic things. So I just was never really fully diagnosed until college that actually was like, hey.
Because your sibling was like the identified one. They were like, okay, we have the most in your face issues right now. We got to throw all our energy into them. And then you were kind of like, well, he's getting by. He's doing this stuff. We just don't know if it's boys.
I wouldn't say left behind, but not causing too much ruckus compared to, my mother trying to do the other two.
You weren't the squeaky wheel.
Yeah. And so Bill, eventually, gave up, right? He was probably the smartest one in the group. Still is. Bill, if you're watching. But, we just turned out to be a family of late bloomers, right? We're all doing really, really well, but it took us a while. And that was kind of just coming into our own understanding and finally trying to recognize what is the operating system of which our family works out of. We have MacBooks and we've been trying to play the game as a PC our whole lives. And as soon as we started to operate ourselves with the proper commands and functioning and understand there's a why, the confidence started to come and the self-esteem started to raise. And that's a big, other component of ADHD. When we're confident, our self-esteem is good, it's like rolling sometimes, right?
Yeah,
but
totally.
As soon as it starts to knock.
So you kind of had a sense there was something different about you, it sounds like, but you didn't quite embrace or accept this is ADHD. This is something I have to actually seriously contend with till about like what point in your life?
Yeah. So, I still thought I could outwork it. I still thought I could, try, but I always felt like I had to try so much harder. It wasn't until after med school and residency that it kind of just was like this dream I've been chasing was for somebody else.
You made it through med school and residency without ADHD treatment?
I mentioned before, like around college, I got the diagnosis, but I was not liking it, right? It was just kind of like starting the treatment process and whatever, but it was never, here's just something the doctor gave me.
You were medicated, but not optimized at that point.
Exactly. That's probably the best way to put it. And I didn't like it. And so I wasn't consistent. I was a classic kind of patient we might hear about. And so I ended up going to the University of Kentucky, which was a big game changer for me and being embraced there and really thriving and ended up completing the residency as chief resident and all these other types of things, which was pretty cool. But now I'm starting to understand I just needed to be authentic, right? And the more authentic I became, the more understanding I started to have of just who I am and where am I really supposed to be. And I needed to design things a little bit different. So as I kind of ended up designing my own practice, it's designed in a way that I get to spend more time with patients because it's a lot of automation, right? So if I can keep my overhead really low, I'm not as dictated by insurance. But, going to 9 different schools in 12 years and struggling a little bit in those ways, I want to take insurance, right? I want to be available to those patients, but I also don't want to be dictated by how much time, because I'm still a physician, not a psychiatrist, right? So I have different kind of billing codes and things like that. So I can't just bill on time without, insurance kind of pushing back too hard. So I got to come up with alternative ways of like, all right, if I can keep my overhead super low and be kind of plain Jane here from the office standpoint, and not be too flashy, I can spend an extra 30 minutes with the patient and actually kind of help in different ways. And so it's actually been kind of a blessing in disguise, but it was something that didn't just happen, right? Kind of it was like, I failed and I failed and I failed until I said, Scott, just do you, man.
You charted your own path and you kind of carved out a different way to practice that worked better for you.
I have a question on this subject. Your practice is built on what you call the whole health toolkit. Functional labs, nutrition, CBT, and medication all working together. For someone who's only ever been handed a prescription and sent on their way, what does a more integrative approach actually look like in practice, day in, day out?
It looks like the doctor I never had. I wanted to be the doctor I never had growing up, or my family never had growing up. And so, like an appointment, medication management, if you've been optimized or you're trying to figure that out, it's always part of the conversation. But stress, mindfulness, sex and relationships, diet, movement, or exercise. Some people don't like the word exercise, so just movement, supplements and supplementation on how we can help benefit the brain and, the different variables that people with ADHD have. We tend to be more deficient in vitamin D. We tend to be more deficient in magnesium and zinc. And not only that, but supposedly less receptors. So we actually need higher levels than the normal baseline, right? So it was like at 30 my whole life. And it's always, you're normal, just a little low. But maybe my low is 50. Right? Because if I have less receptors, I need more out there to hit the fewer receptors that I have. And as I started to increase my vitamin D levels, that's what they always talk about, the fatigue and things like this. And so and then you start to realize that, okay, I need to kind of be more mindful of my supplementation.
So you run more blood panels and stuff to be able to hone in on deficiencies and other things that supplements could help with.
Yeah. So I kind of do it in two phases. One is we know kind of what supplements we probably should be on. And if you got, methylation gene mutations or other types of things, which can be quite common. I've set up like a nonprofit that kind of, I just push everything through my nonprofit to kind of get the lowest price possible, because some of those integrative labs can be expensive, but just to get your foot in the door. But we know how much the labs cost, and they're not as expensive, and they're coming down in price. So I just do something separate on the side that's just taking the horse to water. Here's the options available, because insurance won't pay for any of that. And if you want it, we'll use my nonprofit to get it and just do it at cost. So now it's just opening up frontiers for patients to, try to take a little bit more advocacy and agency to kind of, I can actually do some of this.
For our listeners, before you move, what's the name of that nonprofit?
�ＥVEN Keel Health Partners. So it's kind of like just the partner.
�ＥVEN Keel. We love a pun.
Health Partners. Excellent. Yeah. And that's my last name too. So it worked out pretty good.
That's what I'm saying, Dr. Keel.
Yeah. So sometimes we don't know, like maybe I was born for this. Right. When we're questioning so much about our life, trying to find purpose and meaning, sometimes it can be right in front of you the whole time.
You had to reach a point of personal burnout and an inflection point in your life to then come to this realization of what it was as kind of your passion, your purpose, your drive for your career. Sounds like you kind of reached this point. We talk a lot about in Attention Different radical acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Would you say that's what you kind of reached, is this place of radical acceptance within yourself?
I think that's really was the turning point. Was I am who I am, and I have
After
to
being
accept
fed up.
all of my trauma, all of the issues, all of those types of things that I went through in life. That they're just all part of my story. Yeah, it's just also part of what makes me, but it's not part of my future. Right. So I still have the control over where I'm going to be, and how do I use these types of things to build upon, not break me down. Right. So not allowing my past to define me, but also giving me the courage to, I guess, sometimes think, was there a reason? It's never a reason for somebody to get, beat and all these other types of things. But sure helps me be a better clinician when I'm talking to a patient about these topics.
I'm hearing all kinds of allegory in here that's important to me personally. I'm hearing Boleslavsky, assistant to Stanislavski, who gives us modern acting, who says once the subject is truly fed up, only then can the real work begin. You had to reach a bottom out point of being fed up and tired. You said it yourself. I wanted to be the doctor I never had. Right.
Yeah.
And that pushes you into that radical acceptance space. Well, I can't move forward with this fed upness if I don't accept exactly where I am and do something with it. And then I'm also hearing a lot of like Sacksian behavior. I don't know if you're a fan of Oliver Sacks, but this story, this whole health approach is very reminiscent of Oliver Sacks to me personally. And I not only hear you, I see you. Game recognized game. I'm sort of gobsmacked by the pediatrician I had at 15 who assured me, Dr. Keel, me that my ADHD would go away after puberty.
You'll grow out of it.
Assured me, you will just grow out of it. And this is the first time in my memory that I stood up to a licensed person of authority and said, I just cannot accept that as true. And I loved this guy. He was a drummer. I'm a drummer. I had thought the world of this man. This is the first time I looked at him so confused and said, but it's my brain. What are you talking about? It's not like acne. It's my brain. I cannot accept that as true. So like game recognized game in that regard. It both must be true. You had to accept being fed up in yourself and fed up with the status quo, and then radically accept the brain that you have. And as you said it's right in front of you. It's also right behind the eyes, Yeah. The purpose was inside you the whole time.
And if we don't accept the neurotype of which, we're given, we can enhance it and kind of, make some modifications, but it's kind of who we are. If I'm not accepting of that, I will have change. And that change can sometimes be in the form of pathological change to anxiety, to depression, to other types of things, which are healable, Sometimes there's some metabolic type things where I just don't make enough serotonin, hence I need a reuptake because of some deficiency or whatnot. But the goal is now kind of operating from a preventative standpoint, right? I don't need to increase my medicine. I need to fix my sleep. I've already been dialed in, So if I am going through the week and I'm like, man, my medication's just not working, I always have to look inwards and be like, how's your sleep? How's your diet? Because guess what? Somewhere along the line, I've messed up. Somewhere along the line, a new episode came out and I started watching and staying up a little bit later. Somewhere something's creeped in. Somewhere somebody's moved one thing to another side of the room and I've lost it for 2 weeks and didn't even realize I stopped. So one of my other mantras is like, what am I not doing that I used to do when everything was going pretty good?
Right.
Somewhere along the line, I've just stopped doing. Yeah. And so, I need to get back on taking my vitamin D. I've slipped going to the gym or doing a little bit of movement.
I haven't worked out in weeks.
Didn't even realize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sleep is the foundation of our day, not the
I
end
call
of
it
the
number
day.
one. I call it sleep is number one. Nutrition and diet is number two, movement is number three, and then we can talk about medication and treatment modalities. But if you haven't gotten those top three figured out yet, then let's start there.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's all going to dictate and help each other out. Right. And so where we end up, once we kind of, Dr. Dodson talks about this and a few others about once you find your set point, right. And we can kind of get it to the milligram. Well, if the medication's fixed, I'm not, right? So I'm going to be the variable that's going to be changing, right? So as my sleep goes off or stress at work or burnout or other types of things, and I'm not managing my ADHD, I go to the doctor and, hey, this is all off. And if you're not talking about all these other types of things, hey, let's increase the dose. See if you can get that response again. Well, now I've gone past my set point, right? So what happens when you start going past your set point? Well, the ADHD part of my brain that needed it, perfect. But the other part of my brain that didn't need the extra stimulant and that was doing pretty good. Let's just say I had 5 receptors over there and now I've given it a little bit more receptor activation. Well, brain's pretty smart. It's like, I don't actually need that much over here. So I'll start having down receptor regulation, take away the stimulant, getting deeper crashes, getting kind of a little bit depression, low energy states, things like this. Oh, we need more. And we start seeing the tolerance build up. But that's very rare for stimulant medications for the ADHD person. It can happen. Mainly see it with Adderall and some of the older medications. But once you find that set point, it's good. Now, women, hormones, other types of things, we now know that we do need to make some modifications as we go through.
Right. Yeah, because ADHD does fluctuate throughout the lifespan.
Yes,
like you said,
exactly.
It changes over time, over age. Your metabolism kind of changes, slows down. Mm-hmm. Hormones change for both men and women.
Start using a PPI or proton pump inhibitor, or start to have GERD and other types of changes.
The rock stars of the ADHD conference circuit are the perimenopause and menopause lecturers, in my humble opinion. I just think that, rock stars, their rooms are chock full of people because the information is so valuable and new.
Yeah, that's nice.
And
there's a bunch of Norwegian and or Scandinavian and Dutch female doctors that are really leading the charge in the research in that field that's starting to finally sprinkle over to the U.S. The U.S. used to be the leader in this stuff. Now it's really starting to be Europe, right? Fibromyalgia is starting to see connections there, and on all these other little connections where the genes are kind of getting pulled over. We know the genetic. What else is close to that gene? Well, we can map the whole genome out. Now we can see why we tend to have higher Ehlers-Danlos or hypermobility or migraines or allergies and all of these other types of things, and POTS and dysautonomia. And why does it affect our population more? Well, those genes get pulled over, and then you get 2, and you get 1 gets turned on, 1 gets turned off, blah, blah, blah.
It's those Randy Scandies, man.
Yeah, so when you're going to your doctor, if you got ADHD on your diagnosis, we need to take these other things seriously. All right.
I want to go back to what you were saying, because I think it's just so crucial what you were talking about in terms of looking at when someone goes to their doctor and they say, hey, my medication just isn't working. And the doctor doesn't ask, how's your sleep? How's your diet? How's stress at work? How's all these other things?
Yeah.
Sexual and relational impacts as well. I know that's something that Dr. Keel, I'm with Aaron on this.
Right. There's a lot of stuff to ask, the client, the patient about, but we just don't a lot of times those things aren't asked. And then what happens, I feel like, is there's self-medicating behaviors, compensation behaviors, like people will take more caffeine. Oh, I didn't get good sleep. So what am I going to do? I'm going to pound caffeine or energy drinks or whatever it is, right? And then that impacts also how the medicine is delivered and absorbed in the body and that type of stuff. And then there's other substances. Oh, I want to come down later in the evening. So now there's marijuana usage or other, or, sleep medications or different things like that.
Alcohol, whatever.
Alcohol, right. I'll just have a few drinks in the evening. And then you see these habitual behaviors creep in to try to mitigate some of these things that are lifestyle choices at the core. And it's so difficult because I think ADHD, probably a lot of our listeners are probably thinking to themselves, well, yeah, I know. Like, I get it. Like, I know what I should do. I know I'm supposed to, right? I know I should get this much sleep, or I know I should eat a balanced diet. I know I should do this, but how? Like, how do I get myself to do this? What are some things you say?
What do you do?
Yeah. So, as we start, just real quickly, some of the research was coming out and why I'm so adamant about the preventative health, right? So the big research came out of the UK in 2025 of the lifespan, of how much shorter it is, especially for women, like 10 years, like less of a life than others. But if we're properly treated, it actually extends our life. Wow. That's a pretty significant amount of years right there. And I need to take this kind of seriously.
A decade is a long amount of time. You can live an entire life in a decade. So yeah. Valuable.
And so when you're tired of being tired, you got to take a look and be like, it's time. I just need to do a clinical trial of one, right? I've done these coping mechanisms. I've tried the marijuana. I've tried these other types of things, and it helps temporarily, right? But then for some people, chemical balances and chemical changes happen with chronicity and chronic use. But why not just try a week, right? Why not try 2 weeks? I'll try to kind of give the patient just like a little challenge, these SMART goals and things like that, and be like, look, it's a clinical trial. This is your life. Let's just see if we can do a month, right? And if we can't do a month, let's just go a little bit smaller. And sometimes it's that bar of initiation, right? So I need the dopamine to initiate the bar. And I used to kind of joke on the way home, there's a gym, right? And so I always picture your head at the end of work as this Lamborghini sports car. My skull is a closed garage, and it's just revving the engine, and the exhaust fumes are filling up. And what most people don't know is we don't have great veinage drainage. It's all lymphatic drainage and some veinage drainage. But if I can get my heart rate up, it's like opening the garage door, and I can transform my evenings. And so I'll say, would you rather have 4 shitty hours with your family when you get home from work, or 3 quality hours? They almost always say, I'll take 3 quality hours. Okay, now we found an hour, right? And if we do a little trial and just say, if you could take an hour to check out of work, do something to get your heart rate up, and see how those 3 hours are, and you have a little bit more emotional regulation, a little bit not so snippy with your kids, or better with your wife or partner, see if it doesn't work. And then sometimes it's the initiation part, right? I need to sometimes make it so simple. I'd always want to go to the gym, and I'm sitting at the stoplight, and I'm like, oh, fuck it. And I just go the other way. And I was like, all right, Scott, just go to the sauna. Just sit in the sauna for 15 minutes. That was the easier thing.
Yes.
And so I could get the steering wheel to go left, to go to the gym, to sit in the sauna. Yeah. Well, now I'm fucking there, right?
I'm already here.
Now I'm already here. Let me do something. So I had to lower my bar so low that it was just like, okay, the sauna's, all right, I can do the sauna. And so how do we make these little tips? And the more we understand about our operating systems, when the patient actually has someone explaining this to them, they understand that they're not a failure. Going to the gym is hard, and that for us with ADHD, sometimes that bar of initiation is it's not even worth trying. It's too high. I'm going to fail. I'm not going to do anything. Why not? How do we lower that bar to the initiation dopamine drive to get us started? It's like, yeah, okay, why not? Okay, I can do this. I can do that. And we start adding on to it. And then we start to see patients starting to say, I actually have lived in chaos my whole life and never realized I do actually have some control Some of it is letting go of control to gain more control. But as you start to learn how we can understand our brain's work and cruise it, man, I can't get this paper started. All right, well, then just read the instructions, or let's just work on just the title. I don't need to do the whole thing. I just need to make it so small that, I can start. And then usually momentum carries it over. I can step over a clothes basket for 3 days. What is the clothes basket? It's just clothes. They're already folded. And then I'm like, Scott, just put away the socks.
Just put away.
And then I just put it away.
Yeah.
But I stepped over it for 3 days.
Lowering the barrier of entry into the task can is what you're saying is like can be one of the most effective things and thinking about how you pair that with something that's enjoyable that does drive you to go there, right? So I think that's kind of the synopsis of what that approach you're talking about. Like, how do we make it easier, more accessible, lower those expectations? A lot of times ADHDers are in this all or nothing, has to be perfect mindset.
Perfectionism mindset.
Yeah, but really it's like, well, just put away the socks. Just do the first. Just get to the gym, get in the door, and go to the sauna. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, start there.
Temptation bundle. Don't eat the frog, eat the cake. Like, shameless plug of our pending new e-course, Dr. Keel. But we have a 3-part e-course, and the first part,
saw that.
editor, well, thank you very much. Our editor, Ian, our esteemed editor, revealed to us that part 1 is twice the size. It's essentially part 2 and 3 combined, right? So course 1 is course 2 and 3. And wouldn't you know it, course 1 is all about getting started. Right. So like our Everest is getting started on something. And then once that momentum builds, it's so much easier for us to push the boulder up the hill.
Yeah. You had mentioned quickly, Stephen, with sex and relationships, right? And that I'm deeply
curious because I eventually there will be an attention different after dark. And I want, and this is a subject that I'm absolutely fascinated
Ari's book's pretty good. But with having a mentor who's been around and seeing things for a long time, you pick up on these little cues, right? Like, hey, as men, and are we watching our testosterone and doing other types of things? But he doesn't have ADHD, but he noticed that low testosterone seems to be kind of more common, maybe a little bit, but also sexual side effects, and not just from the stimulant medications, whatever, but keeping our head in the game. Right. And not getting bored or getting, distracted or sensory issues with wet spots and blah, 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 blah. And so it can be challenging to maintain relationships, especially in the sexual side of things. And there's been some interesting research on tadalafil, like guanfacine. It's about, if you think of anything that's really impacting and insulting to the brain, it's diminished blood flow to some capacity. Strokes, toxins, cardiovascular, whatever. Guanfacine and those are about maximizing efficiency and blood flow to the brains through their mechanisms of action. And so while they're good for one head, it turns out they're actually really good for the other head as well. And so some research is still kind of coming out on that with, the information. But, tadalafil's been out for years. So that's a whole cohort of men. And now they're saying less cognitive decline. Now, is that the sexual relationships and healthy partners or whatever, or is some of it the ability? Well, seems to be if it's more sex and healthier relationships, that's a winner. If it's the medication, well, that's a winner. And there's doesn't seem to be too many downsides. But if it can help in that spontaneity and maintaining an erection for some, these relationships is a huge part. We love relationships.
It's primatological.
It can be one of our challenging parts. Yeah.
I have a question because I had a client who recently came to me, female ADHD partner of in a relationship with a male ADHD partner. And she was struggling with one thing that I think, is probably a common thing in terms of something people deal with in relationships, I would say. Across the board is the sex drive, kind of like some like one person, usually typically the male partner has a higher need and higher drive for sex and then the female. That's just kind of what research out there shows. There's obviously exceptions to the rule out there, but
Of course.
there's
There are. I will not raise my hand because we're not going there. But no, I know it. I know another exception to the rule.
but the thing that she was also describing was, which I thought was an interesting conundrum or way she was looking at it, was like she was describing how he was getting very snippy, and like, she would notice like if they hadn't had sex for, a few days, a week, however long, right? His mood and dysregulation emotionally would get more and more snippy and short, and he'd kind of go in withdrawal and kind of stonewall and do other things like that. And she was connecting that to like, is he using sex to regulate his emotion? And I was wondering what your thoughts on that are. Is that something that is part of the, an ADHD profile in some ways of using sex to regulate?
As dopamine regulation?
Yeah, dopamine and emotional regulation.
I'd be more interested to see organically, what is his testosterone? What are some of these other types of things? What is his internet or porn usage? And overall things, and over time, is this his outlet, right? Is this something that he does to self-regulate? We all develop coping mechanisms. Sometimes they're healthy and sometimes they're not healthy. And I haven't seen that too much, but I definitely have seen it in those with maybe higher than normal testosterone levels, are those who are using testosterone replacement, right? Therapy. But as for the typical ADHDer, we do have some, just like with food, right? People with ADHD tend to be more obese. We do have some connections with different things. There's that ADHDer who likes to pick at their brothers because it stimulates them in certain ways. And so over time, I think we all have developed some type of subconscious way to seek out the stimulant that kind of works best for us.
Yeah, I mean, but like, I guess like, yeah, we could talk about video games. We could talk about social media usage. We could talk
sweets, salty, crunchy.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I think we have as ADHDers. We're more prone to addictive behaviors, whether it's not, full-blown clinical addiction, right? But it classifies as problematic overusage or usage of different types of things. And I would, like you said, I think porn is one of those things that we don't talk about, probably because of the shame surrounding, like, that's not something we get into or talk about.
It's not your grandfather's porn anymore.
Yeah, and there's so much out there that's highly stimulating, and we know that as people engage in different types of that, of watching porn, you have to up the ante, up the ante, up the ante, up the ante.
We live in the age of VR porn.
Yeah, you're getting more and more dopamine. Yeah.
Talk about dopamine production. I mean, it gets it's elevated to a place of uncanny valley, I think, experiences.
Yeah, and I think I would venture to say that ADHD individuals do have a greater risk of addictive tendencies behaviorally towards these things because of our neurochemistry. And I'm wondering if that plays in some ways of how much, like you said, how much porn usage someone is using, or other types of dopamine-rich activities in their life, and how that impacts their experience with their partner in the bedroom, with experiencing regular dopamine activities in real life, right? Like I imagine, like, if we had someone and we're like, okay, go live in a cabin, you have no access to internet, you have no access to anything, all you get is this one bookshelf of books. And this person has not read for years, maybe ever. I would say they probably would pick up that book after the first, 4 hours in there and be like, this is the most entertaining thing in this place. I could sit here and stare at the paint on the wall, or I can read this book. But what we do is we don't actually allow ourselves in this modern day and age to have periods of dopamine detox or periods of non-stimulation. We're in this always on, always stimulating, seeking more,
Exhausting.
seeking more type of thing.
So yeah, Dr. Keel, respond to all that. A lot of bullet points in there.
Yeah. So, a lot of chronic fatigue that goes on from just overstimulated all the time, and drive and sleep and all of these types of things. But was kind of like resonating in my head as you were talking about the many forms of rejection sensitivity, right?
Totally.
So if my partner's withholding or just not as driven, a lot of ADHDers start to feel rejected. And when you start to feel rejected, you have different emotional, moody, because now if you rejected me, and I'm going to kind of get snippy and things like this because of my own compensating mechanisms. And I think that's a under discussed topic within the ADHD, how much and how real that sensation can be. And sometimes the rejection can be a partner who's maybe just not getting the sex they want, or don't text or call as often as, because most relationships, it's hot and heavy at the beginning, but the novelty wears off and it gets harder and harder to maintain those things, which came really easy to us at the beginning. But if your partner got used to it, now the withdrawal or the separation of timing between things can feel like rejection, or even though they don't really know that's what it is.
Right. I think that I feel like that is the double whammy, is that you can, I think, quite easily and appropriately copy paste the novelty seeking across a myriad activities, whether it be video games, gambling, sports, porn, sex, etc. Like you can sort of copy paste the adult ADHDers experience. Once novelty wears off, there has to be a replacement, a leveling up, an anteing up. And I do appreciate you bringing in the other side of that coin, that gnarly coin, is that there's also a lack of awareness that that's what's happening, right?
Yeah.
The tunnel vision that I'm being rejected in this thing without being aware that some novelty is worn off, or it's taking more effort and energy to get the level of dopamine or the level of acceptance that you were seeking before, or it's different even, and that difference is confusing. But all we experience is frustration, right? And hurt.
Yeah.
There's always two sides of the same coin, or two perspectives too from this too. Is like, there could be, as you said, rejection, that rejection sensitivity. Let's say maybe that's in this case scenario, like maybe that would be more on the part of the male, in this sense of the female's withholding and not giving sex to the frequency that the male is desiring. But at the same time, how he's reacting is also probably triggering her.
Totally.
Yeah, nailed it.
Absolutely.
Withdrawing,
Yep.
acting snippy. Now, what is he doing? He's creating emotional distance. And for her, she's not turned on at all.
No.
When he's being unkind, emotionally distant. She's turned on when he's being open and emotionally intimate and there and talking. And so it's actually triggering both ways. And he's actually doing the very thing that's probably creating the barrier to what he wants, of like that connection, that intimacy, and that increased sex, because he's killing her sex drive by not responding in a way that helps get her there.
Yeah. I don't know, something just hit, like one of the best models we have out there for addiction medicine, right? Is you have a clinician or a prescriber or a doctor, and then you have the therapist or the psychologist, and then you have the peer support, like the person who gets it with a lived experience, and you have the triangle. And I was just kind of seeing this of like Aaron hit in that other side that like a psychologist definitely knows about that angle, right? That I'm going to forget about as the doctor. And then Stephen hits in with his angle, right? And like, that's the trinity of
also
ADHD
it's agendered.
really.
I want to be that. I'm that gender queer person in the room. That's what Aaron just said is brilliantly agendered. That has nothing to do with gender. Is when the dramatic irony abounds when we act from a place of hurt and misunderstanding, and by our very actions cause more of our own hurt and misunderstanding, right? And like that violent loop kicks off because you are hurt and feel misunderstood or misheard. And then you start behaving like a play school child. And the other person doesn't like that, because who does when we're in our 30s, 40s, and 50s? And then they start to enact their hurt, moody behaviors because they're hurt and misunderstood. And the cycle of violence continues, right? So like I imagine that many people listening can understand and relate to this of like, well, I don't want to have sex with you because you're fucking annoying or you're being a shit ass. And the other person is like, well, I'm being a shit ass because we're not having enough sex. And that loop is insufferable, but also kind of banal in its humanness.
Yeah, and we're obviously being. I'm glad you brought that up, Steve, because we're generalizing here when it comes to
very much
some of the genders and presentations here. But yeah, we want to be conscious, and this is obviously a much deeper topic that we could go on for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, no, but I thought you did it well though by saying like that relational point between two adult humans is just so relatable. Like when someone is And
the research, a lot of the research out there is done, unfortunately, on a lot of cisgender couples, or we do this with women, we do this with people who identify as men, and it's cisgender. So it's unfortunate that we don't have enough research out there looking at all of the other like nuances of gender presentation. And
I was just saying, well, I have planted my flag in the queer community, and I'll tell you, it's identical. So the queer community is experiencing the same level of person A is pissed because the frequency is off, and person B is pissed because person A is acting like a fucking child. And that feedback loop, or that recursive loop, is something that I know listeners can relate to. And from the outside looking in, it's such a banal tragedy, right? Because if what is ultimately desired is a great thing, right? More intimacy, more attraction, more involvement, more love shared. But our reaction rather than response is the thing that stirs shit up.
How we get there. And you said response, Stephen. There's books written about this. And it's actually, I think, one of the critical things that people err on in relationships. I see this time and time again, especially in like longer term partnerships where people are moving in together, they're getting married. You're past that initial period of where it's the honeymoon period, the butterfly in your stomach period. Now you're in a relationship. And yes, the excitement and other things tends to slow down. The type of desire and the responses to desire shift. So in that stage of the relationship, actually the research shows that 40% of people, oftentimes women, right, when we're referring to cisgender women, they have what's called more of like a responsive desire to sex, not a spontaneous. So men, right, tend to have more of this spontaneous, like, I'm ready for action. I'm turned on. You just say the word. You just look at me with the right, glance in your eye, and it's like, let's go, right?
Hell yeah.
I'm up.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I think there's a difference of the responsive desire, which actually kind of means more of like, what does this person need to build up to feeling, to getting their needs met and feeling like they're building up to a place where they're now turned on. It's not gonna be right away. So that's also that's a problematic place for ADHD, because what does that take? It takes some patience. It takes, especially for the male, right, to be like, oh, I need to do some foreplay. I need to set the mood. Maybe it starts in the beginning of the day where I do something nice.
Aaron, say that one more time, because I think some people, no, that is such an important point for all the boys listening. I said boys on purpose. It may be at the start of the day that this process begins, not earlier. 30 minutes, not 45 minutes before, or 10 or 15. It might be something that you are doing, acts of service, something that words of affirmation,
etc. To her love language, doing all of these things, kind stuff, generous, giving.
It might be something you did last week that the person you're with remembers and is like, I was so moved by that thing you did last week, and I turned on today
because you did that. You wrote me that poem. You did that kind thing for me that I needed. Yes. So if we learn their love language, and we meet our partner there, and we start doing some things, not as a quid pro quo, but it's like
no.
It's like sparking that desire. It's starting to shift into that responsiveness of how do we get them turned on and get them in the mood instead of thinking in our way of, well, why aren't they just desiring me right off the bat? Well, that's because that's you, right? It may have been like that at the beginning of your relationship because, yeah, everyone is more like that at the beginning. It's exciting, it's new, it's novel. Well, now it's not that anymore. Now we need to find other ways to have intimacy build.
Yeah, so important. There's a great researcher and clinician in Canada. I think her website's like ADHD and Sex or something like that, where the neurodiversity, continuum of all the different vast things from the chronic conditions to sensory processing or other types of things, and we're so unique and similar in so many different quirks and other types of things that. When we try to generalize these types of things for a mass audience, it is really hard because someone's always feeling left out or whatnot. But it is
right.
So challenging. But the two of you guys, I thought I was just listening. I was like, they're nailing it on the head. So,
appreciate that. It's Dr. 𝗦𝗰nci𝘁 for the record.
Yeah.
She's awesome. She's really cool.
We got to get her on the show too.
Yeah.
Amen. We have our producer David was talking about. Although this is very interesting material to me, we have to wrap out. Honestly, we should just have a whole other episode that's all about ADHD sex, and it is true. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a fan of Ari Tuckman's ADHD After Dark, and I on my own journey, I am a Dan Savage of the Savage Lovecast acolyte. Have been listening for years since it was a radio show. Read 𝗠𝗠, this sort of thing. Like there are books out there for the queer space that are not just about queer relationships. They're about relationship formation and positive nonviolent communication. Admin meetings with your partner. Like there are many important facets of healthy relationships to be gleaned from these materials. But I perhaps obviously the increased statistic, the population of neurodivergent people in a queer space is paramount to the queer space, right? So like these conversations become regular, right? The difference between ADHD, autistic, ADHD, someone with this condition, that condition, someone who has depression, someone who has this, that. We are sort of forced by nature to talk about sex and relationships through the lens of our neurodiversity because it's so ever present, if that makes sense.
So good. I think it's just, as we kind of try to paint the picture, right? What works for one doesn't work for all. And it's about learning and asking why and trying new things. And all of a sudden you find something that works until it doesn't.
The ADHD tragedy.
And then you got to try something else, and you got to kind of be that fluid and constantly be trying to shape and mold yourself and grow and nurture both yourself and your partner. But your partner's got to be willing to do the same thing. And we both should be rising up as individuals and supporting the strengths. And, if they're weak at doing dishes, I'll do the dishes, but you got to, here's your strengths. And so how do we kind of figure out and just constantly be trying new things or just figuring out what is, they talk about it, ADHD owner's manual, right? What is the manual that works for me, right? No one gave it to me when I was born. So I got to kind of make it up as I go, but I need to write it down so I don't forget.
The radical acceptance thing, which is a cool place to round this out. Like none of us are saying there's an easy fix. Unfortunately, if you're listening, there isn't one. But what is cool is that if you create your own owner's manual, it's yours. You own it. It's yours. And you can feel empowered by that. Radical acceptance tells us that we can feel empowered. Thank you, Marsha Linehan and the Buddhists before you. You can feel empowered by having it and advocating for yourself and saying, I've done the work, I've done my homework, this works for me, this does not. And if you try and beat your head against this second thing, it's going to make you really upset and me really upset because you're not listening, right? So like the having that owner's manual, which Aaron and Dr. Keel and I are in our own ways trying to help people develop for themselves, build for themselves, it's so important. It's tantamount.
And it's a fluid manual. It's an ever-changing manual. It's not a fixed, concrete thing you do once and you kind of put it on the shelf. No, we keep adding, we keep changing, we keep modifying as we grow, as we change, as our body changes, as our brain changes. and we don't give up, because what we lack in consistency, we make up for in persistence, as I always like to tell people.
Trademark, Aaron Smith.
Yeah. So I always kind of like to say, as we kind of go through life, and why I try to take this holistic, whole health model, is because it's all about kind of the amplitude and frequency of our ADHD impacting my ability to be my best self. And so the amplitude of how bad I mess up, or the frequency of how often I do these little mistakes or whatever, I'm keeping track up in my head. And so I'm beating myself up. And as I start to kind of look at the big picture and start to do these other little things, the amplitude and the frequency start to get a little bit more, like, I hate to say it, life on an even keel, right? It's like I'm starting to thrive now. And I start to go from, and I go from this place of just, I feel like I'm drowning with someone's foot on my head and the waves are crashing on me, to like I'm starting to thrive, right? And I'm starting to really find purpose. And with that comes my confidence and self-esteem. And with that comes, better control my ADHD. And then all of a sudden, the catalyst that constantly went the other way of faults and mistakes is now the catalyst of growth and opportunity and embracement. And so you just got to start somewhere, and start by asking the questions.
Dude.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This was an excellent conversation yet again. Another one.
I had a blast, and it was just really, didn't know what to expect on these types of things. And I think I wrote one time, I was like, do I need to prepare? And it's like, no, just have some fun. And I was like, all right, let's just do it. And thanks for putting me at ease, and just enjoying a conversation with you two guys. And hopefully there's some people out there that might catch some wisdom. And I'm getting ready to submit kind of this topic. So this is something I've been bouncing around in my head. Like, it's what I do. Nobody else is doing it. Maybe I need to get the word out. So I think I ran into Aaron at the conference, and I think Steven had his little leather jacket on and was, doing this little 360 picture stuff and doing,
that's right.
doing a headstand at one point. Like,
me? No. We just had a great conversation with Dr. Scott Keel. We are feeling a little more even keel about our mental health, and we'd like to now open the floor to you to offer your pluggables. What was that first thing you said? And then add anything else you'd like to add.
Where the listeners could find you.
Yeah. So, I've been trying to be that doctor I never had for me and my family when it came to ADHD, and just understanding and helping me embrace to be my authentic self, and just giving me the tools that I need to find that and thrive. And so started my own practice, 𝑣𝑒𝑛 𝐾𝑒𝑒𝑙 Health in Richmond, Virginia, and love what I do, and trying to bring a holistic preventative health model to helping you thrive and live your best life. Keeping it real with Dr. Keel is what I say, is because everything is open and everything's discussed, because we can sometimes struggle with the basics, right? And if we're not talking about it and normalizing it, a normal visit will skip over it. So, and I want people to learn that, while I'm in Richmond and don't practice across state lines or anything, we can start to become advocates and champions and learn how to ask the right questions to your doctor. And if your doctor's not asking the right questions, be open to telling them and making sure that you're getting your money's worth for that medication management visit, right? Don't be plugged by the limitations of time, right?
So if you're someone that's in the Richmond area and you want to work with Dr. Keel, you can go to 𝑒venkeelhealth.com, right?
Yep. And
okay.
so
do you have any social media sites?
Yeah, Dr. Keel on Instagram is the only one I'm able to somewhat keep up with, but that's hopefully something I want to try to turn the tide on. And I'm starting to get into groups and coffee chats and things like that, and because I'm having so much fun helping patients find their little authentic selves and building a little community here of people. It's great. Like we said at the conference, when you find your people, and it's amazing the diversity that we have. You would never see these people all in one room having a blast, right? Outside of the commonality of someone gets me. And that's just an amazing thing. So hopefully we'll continue to grow this and have fun, but also I want to have a mission to to help providers, who have questions about stimulant medications or whatever they might have of what they can do to their practice or medications. This is kind of where I really set myself apart, is medications and supplements and things like that are important to know as the clinician. The stuff from 50 years ago is Folgers. It works, but is it the best on the market? No, there's different delivery mechanisms.
Oh my God, our producer David is somewhere loving you so hard that you made that coffee reference. That is such a delicious bougie coffee. David just texted all caps, yep. Yeah, no.
It's all caffeine. It's just delivered different ways, right? And there's one that people like. And so, I mean, Adderall works for a lot of people and it's great, but the times of that medication is long gone. The abuse potential is too high. And if you learn how to advocate, trying 3 medications, most insurances will eventually approve and pay for the 4th.
Well, there you go. Thanks so much for being on the show and taking the time to help do what you do, not only here and spreading the message of preventative health and holistic integrated medicine and being an powerful ADHD advocate for our community, but also just being a good, solid, good person. Sounds,
Thanks, man.
Sounds like you're just
Thank you.
You're just someone who's doing the work and there for people. And that's who we love to support.
Dude, gives us courage.
Platform. And it gives us, it gives us a lot of encouragement and strength to know there's people like you out there, because there's so many other folks out there that just, they have that shingle up there, say they're a doctor, but they're not practicing in ways that feel connected to that authenticness.
Yeah. So if anybody's on the East Coast, the ADHD International Conference is in Baltimore in December.
Oh, yes.
That's right. It's going back to Baltimore.
I think it's a leftover voucher from the COVID era, right? So they still got a...
I mean, that's okay.
That makes sense. I was wondering why. Yeah, but that makes sense. Okay. We already paid
Baltimore
for this.
was a blast. Yeah. And we have, Aaron and I already have access to a sick Airbnb for the after party.
Oh, yeah. I saw that on y'all social media feed that I was like, oh, they went out for barbecue at some cool little brick walled place. And I was like,
make sure to hit us up, because we always have some kind of gathering for our folks at the conference. And so, you're definitely invited.
It's usually Friday night to not compete with the closing night party. And it's 𝗦𝗰𝑇 if we'll put out a party full or something like that. But it just naturally fell in our laps 3 or 4 years ago, and we're happy to be the unofficial official sponsor of the ADHD conference for the Friday night after party.
Well, sounds fantastic. If y'all ever have questions, I'm open. Just on your own stuff or whatever. This is what I'm passionate about is breaking up the traditional model and just sharing information. So keep me in your thoughts if you ever need anything. Okay, guys?
We will. You're a great resource.
Thank you so much.
Y'all have a great one. Take care, guys.
You too. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you.